Hey, what is happening, everybody? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and today I want to talk about a pretty cool feature to Super Mario 3D All-Stars that I don't really see a lot of people talking about, and that I also think gives us a possible look into some future Nintendo Switch titles. Now, before I jump too deeply into the topic, I do want to remind you that I am currently pushing to cross 15,000 subscribers before the end of 2020. I am super close. It is very exciting to see. So as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing, then maybe consider subscribing to the channel to help me cross that milestone before the year is over. So Super Mario 3D All-Stars has been out for about 2 weeks now. It's a very big deal. It is very popular. Of course, it's also very polarizing. I mean, how much conversation have we seen on the internet about how some people are very excited and some people have been very angry about what Nintendo chose to do and chose not to do with this game and these 3 ports. And I mean, I've talked about it quite a few times on the channel here, you guys know. I'm somebody who's very happy with the final product. I was excited once the first rumor got out back earlier in the year. I was excited even after the game was revealed and I saw what they were doing, and now that I've had it in my hands for a week, I'm still excited. I'm still enjoying it. I personally have very few issues with what they did overall. If I could pick anything to be different based on what they've done, I would like if there were more menu options. I mean, and when I say menu options, I mean maybe the ability to adjust the audio or the brightness or the visuals or the controls and button map certain things. It's very bare bones in that respect. As far as the other stuff that people are upset about, the fact that these are just straight ports, they're only made in HD, there was no other remastering done to it, there's no other features like art books and concept galleries and things like that. That is stuff that personally, I'm just not losing any sleep over. I don't really mind what this product is, with the exception of the lack of actual options and control features. But speaking of control features, that's really the main meat of today's topic. And with that, we actually focus specifically on Super Mario Galaxy, because that was a game that I definitely had my eyes on when I knew that it was coming over to the Nintendo Switch. And I think a lot of other people, maybe some of you guys did as well. And for myself, the biggest thing I was curious to see was how they were going to emulate the Wii controls, the pointer and the motion controls, and make it work on the Nintendo Switch. Of course, the Nintendo Switch has Joy-Cons, and Joy-Cons that can be pulled apart and held separately, one in each hand. And this is something that ever since they were first shown, ever since the Switch launched and we had them in our hands, we've all talked about and made comparisons to the Wii Remote and Nunchuck. I mean, that's a very obvious comparison when you look at these 2 Nintendo controllers, the Wii Remote and Nunchuck and the 2 Joy-Cons, and you think, oh, Joy-Cons are similar to the Wii Remote, the way you can use 2 hands independent of each other to do things and even have some motion capabilities, just like the Wii back in 2006. Now, Super Mario Galaxy on the Wii, which was a 2007 Nintendo Wii game, that used motion in 2 ways. It used the Wii Remote to just shake and waggle real quick, and it would create Mario's kind of spin attack move that is extremely important to how you play and traverse through Super Mario Galaxy. And most importantly, it also had the pointer, the little pointer that you use to pick up star bits, and you can even use it to like shoot things, like at the, I think the Lumas they're called, where you have to shoot the star bits into its mouth and make it all big and fat and happy, and it turns into like a planet or whatever. You know, really cool stuff that's in that game. You needed precise pointer controls. And you know, the Wii Remote used the IR sensor on the end of the Wii Remote to point at the little sensor bar, and so it knew exactly where you were pointing and emulated that on the screen. And at the time, it was very revolutionary, very cool for the Nintendo Wii, and it worked extremely well in Mario Galaxy, and it was integral to how you played that game. With that game coming to the Switch, we all know that there's gyro and motion controls to a degree built into the Joy-Con and to the Switch and to the Pro Controller, but would it translate the same way for a game like Mario Galaxy that required pinpoint pointer control action, okay? It's different than gyro, it's different than tilting and your X and your Y axis of tilting things like your Switch and your Pro Controller. It needed to specifically be able to point at certain things if you wanted to do so. And that also reminds us of other games that we've talked about from the Nintendo Wii that could come to the Switch, that we've had conversations about over the years, and a lot of people have questioned whether or not these games would even be possible on something like the Switch, even with the Joy-Cons, because most people have felt that you can't emulate the Wii's motion controls well enough on the Nintendo Switch to make those games work. And so that's a lot of preamble that I'm kind of giving and barfing out to you guys about all of this stuff. What I'm trying to get at is, once I had Super Mario Galaxy in my hand, we knew that you could use motion and Joy-Con controls for the game, but I wanted to test it for myself. I wanted to see, is Super Mario Galaxy somehow doing the exact same thing on the Switch that it also did on the Wii with the Wii Remote pointer controls? And honestly, half to my surprise and half not to my surprise, you can. You can literally emulate the precise Nintendo Wii controls. Here is a little video I shot of myself, just in case you haven't tried this yourself yet, of what it's like to hold the Joy-Cons separately using the right one in my right hand, playing Super Mario Galaxy, and using the pointer, okay? And maybe you already know that you can do this. Maybe you have the game, you've tried it yourself, and this is something obvious to you. For myself, I got the game several days late because Amazon screwed up my shipping. So when I finally got it earlier this week, I was like, let me try this out. And you can see in this video here, I mean, it works. Literally, you can go up, down, left, right, diagonal, and your pointer follows, not using an IR pointer and a sensor bar like the Wii did, just using the gyro motion controls built into the Switch and into the Joy-Cons, and it plays just like it did on the Nintendo Wii, as if you were pointing it at a sensor bar. Now, I'm gonna be real, I think that that's actually really cool. Like I said, part of me is surprised because we haven't really seen any game do this or heard Nintendo talk about this. The other part of me is not surprised because we know that there's gyro and motion already built into all of the Switch controls and configurations. Like I said, we already know that that was there. And a game like Splatoon 2 is a great example that jumps to my mind, where you can hold any of the Nintendo Switch configurations, and when you pull up the map, you use a motion to just pick wherever you are on the map and go to that section, whereas on the Wii U, you had to do it on the touchscreen on the gamepad. And so that already kind of put in place the very concept of what Galaxy does. But now we have a one-to-one comparison. We have an actual Nintendo Wii game that used very specific pointer sensor bar motion controls, and now we've seen what happens when you take that exact game and those exact controls and put it onto the Nintendo Switch and ask you to use a Joy-Con in your right hand and try to do the pointer controls. And as you saw in my video, it works. This is Nintendo showing, hey, we can emulate all of the different controls the Wii had with the Joy-Con. It is that good, it is that accurate. Now, I will say, it's that accurate, and I don't know how well it came through in the video, but I will say that there is a little bit of a delay. So, whereas the Nintendo Wii, when you're using the pointer and the sensor bar, you're pretty much exactly one-to-one, it is 100% right with your movement. Using the Switch on Mario Galaxy and the Joy-Cons, I would say it's about 90% accurate. So there is a little bit of a delay, it's a little bit slower and goofier. It's not the exact same as using an actual physical pointer to a sensor bar. At the end of the day, that was the most accurate way to do it. However, this still worked. Even 90% accuracy, even with that little bit of a delay, it worked totally fine. And you know what? Shaking it back and forth, doing the little waggle thing to make Mario spin, it worked just fine. It felt the exact same as it did on the Nintendo Wii. So even though it's not quite there, I think it's there enough to show us that other games should be possible. And I think you know what games I'm talking about. The biggest one, the number one most talked about Wii motion game coming to any other console, including the Switch with the Joy-Cons, is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. You guys, this is the rumor that has not gone away for years. The idea of Skyward Sword getting ported to another console or ported to the Switch has been a conversation, including just in the past month or two. And the big conversation is, you can't do it because of the motion controls. Skyward Sword relied on motion and Wii Motion Plus and pinpoint accuracy and sword swinging to such a degree that you can't emulate it on anything but the Nintendo Wii with the Wii Motion Plus. And as I've been saying for years, and I'll say again here, I never believed that, especially once the Nintendo Switch and the Joy-Cons came out. I absolutely felt that the technology of motion built into the Joy-Cons was just as good, if not better, than the Wii Motion Plus that Skyward Sword used. we have to remember that something that actually works in Skyward Sword's favor here is the fact that that game didn't use the sensor bar. It used Wii Motion Plus, which was entirely gyro reliant, okay? It is not using the sensor bar to do the pointer, the sword swinging, the tilting of, you know, like the beetle thing, you know, and you're dropping your bombs and you're rolling and throwing bombs. None of that was sensor bar reliant. It was all on the gyro, which is exactly what the Switch's Joy-Cons are. And I've said this for a while, but it's like, you know, most people haven't really heard me or considered the fact that this is true. And so when I see Super Mario Galaxy emulating the Wii's pointer controls so well, it shows me that doing sword swings for Skyward Sword is going to be just fine. It is completely possible. You can never convince me that those Joy-Cons can't replicate Skyward Sword's motion controls on the Wii Motion Plus. I just firmly believe it. Now, what gets trickier is what happens if they want you to play Skyward Sword without the Joy-Cons, okay? So that could be a barrier. Maybe there's still no way to make the game without motion controls, which means it's a game that wouldn't work on a Nintendo Switch Lite, and it wouldn't work with the Pro Controller. Maybe that's the case, and so that's a different barrier for entry. But I think it's a huge win when we consider what Galaxy has shown us, you know, and Splatoon 2 to a lesser degree as well. But as far as taking Wii motion controls and putting it on the Switch, Galaxy has shown that it's possible with pinpoint accuracy, 90% pinpoint accuracy. So why couldn't they do something like Skyward Sword? I firmly believe it's possible. We then come to another very important game that I've talked about a lot, as you guys know, the Metroid Prime Trilogy, another game with rumors that refuses to die. And so many of us believe that this thing is going to happen and Nintendo has planned it for a while. And this further shows how possible I think even that is. Now, we've already seen some first-person shooters that use motion controls on the Nintendo Switch, and it's very cool to know that it's there. Some people really like it. I've yet to really take advantage on it, on the shooters on the Switch. But with the Metroid Prime Trilogy, or of course a Metroid Prime 4, if those games come out, and we're using the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, again, Super Mario Galaxy's controls also shows me that using two separate Joy-Cons is going to emulate Metroid Prime Trilogy motion control shooting and aiming perfectly. It's going to work. And in fact, you know, I pointed out how with Mario Galaxy there's like, you know, 90% accuracy. There's that little bit of delay when you're moving it around because it's not a pointer. And that is true. With the Metroid Prime Trilogy, you could argue that it needs to be a heck of a lot more accurate than 90% to make something like a shooter work. And I would agree with you. And so what I'm kind of assuming here and guessing and hoping for is that Nintendo could put even more time and money to make it that much more accurate. Maybe the Galaxy version of motion controls with the Joy-Con is only what it needs to be because that's all it needs to be. If something needs to be more accurate and quicker, like a Metroid Prime Trilogy, perhaps Nintendo and Retro could spend more time and money on mapping the motion controls to the Joy-Con to make it work seamlessly, just like the Wii's version of the controls. Like, I guess I just want to believe that Nintendo is smart enough, talented enough, and has the money to spend to make it work even better than Galaxy is already showing us. And so all of this whole thing, this whole thesis statement of this video is to say that Galaxy to me really changed the game as far as what I see possible when we look at Wii games being ported over to the Switch. I think Skyward Sword is possible. I think the Metroid Prime Trilogy is possible, to the point that using the Joy-Cons in each individual hand means you can emulate 100%, in my opinion, the way it felt to play Skyward Sword and the Metroid Prime games on the Nintendo Wii with the Wii remote. The Joy-Cons to me are that good. Galaxy was the game changer, and I think it's pretty great. Now, you may be saying that I might be being a little bit too optimistic here, and I would say that, yeah, you might certainly be right. Maybe Nintendo has no plans to bring Skyward Sword or the Metroid Prime Trilogy over. Despite the years of rumors, all the stuff we've heard publicly, behind the scenes, whatever, all our theories and guesses, maybe none of that's true. Maybe at the end of the day, Nintendo is laughing at everybody talking about this stuff because they have no plans to do it. In which case, Mario Galaxy's controls don't mean squat when it comes to those games because they're never going to happen. However, I don't personally believe that, okay? I think that these games are very likely possible. I think Nintendo has thought about it, has planned it, and I think that the rumors have popped up over the years because there's probably something to it. And I'm thrilled to see a game like Mario Galaxy get ported to the Switch with those same motion controls using the Joy-Con and see how well it works. it just gets me excited with the possibilities. I mean, you've got Pikmin 3 Deluxe coming out soon as well, and I thought about, is that going to use the same controls as Pikmin 3 on the Wii U, which used the Wii Remote? And I tried looking up to see if there was yet any confirmation on control schemes, and as far as I could see, there isn't. Nintendo's own page for the game doesn't mention controls, and even some articles where they've talked to Nintendo about it don't seem to have any sort of hint at controls. They basically state it as still a mystery until the game comes out. So I would think that if Pikmin 3 was using Joy-Con controls like the Wii, that Nintendo would have been open about that. The fact that they haven't confirmed it makes me guess that maybe that game is not going to do it, which to me would be a shame and a huge missed opportunity, especially because of the Galaxy revelation I've had. But we'll just have to wait and see just in case. Maybe it does use those controls and it becomes another game ported from one of the Wii consoles that used Wii pointer controls that could come out and show us it's possible on the Switch, which again makes other games, complicated games like Zelda and Metroid, possible on the Switch. I just believe it could happen, you guys. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up because I'm just beating a dead horse here, but I'm just clearly very excited about these possibilities, man. I was shocked to see how well the Galaxy controls worked. I was like, this is great. It's just like playing a Nintendo Wii, 90%, accurate to a Nintendo Wii. I thought it was so cool, man. And so I'm excited to see what the future holds for games like this coming over to the Switch. Yes, we want more new games and not more ports, but I think 2 ports we have been wanting for a while, Zelda and Metroid, makes it worth getting excited about for now. So that's what I think. That's my breakdown of this whole thing. And so now I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think of Mario Galaxy's controls? Do you think it says what I think it does about ports in the future? Or do you think it's not a big deal and I'm reading too much into it and this video was a waste of 20 minutes? Whatever you think, talk about it below. And with that, this video is a wrap. This, of course, is Rob of Overlooked to Review. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time on another video.